Scream was a spine-chilling parable on the dangers of horror movie desensitization, but beneath all the cinematic commentary, there actually was a real-life murder spree that inspired the slasher flick. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson was first moved to write the film after seeing news coverage of a murderer known as the Gainesville Ripper. He was so spooked by the story that he armed himself with a butcher knife and called a friend, who started laying it on thick about horror genre tropes. Sound familiar?
You know, the one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters?
After enduring terrible nightmares that night, he woke up and started writing the screenplay for Scream. So what was it about the murders that had such an impact on Williamson? Here are the horrifying details about the true story that inspired Scream. The body count. It all started on August 24, 1990, when 18-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell were attacked in their own apartment. Larson died first after being bound and stabbed, and Powell was sexually assaulted before suffering the same treatment. The entire thing seemed straight out of a horror movie, as their killer mutilated and posed the bodies. The killings continued the very next night, with the murder of Krista Hoyt. She, too, was attacked, bound, raped, and stabbed in the back. Her body was also hacked and repositioned. Law enforcement eventually found her head on a bookshelf. 3 days later, a maintenance man was asked to check on a pair of roommates named Manny Taboda and Tracy Paulez. He walked into their apartment and saw that Taboda was dead, and Paulez, like previous victims, had been bound, raped, and stabbed. The maintenance worker had seen her body when he opened the door and later said she was laying next to a black bag. By the time the police got there, the bag was gone. The media dubbed the killer the Gainesville Ripper. The first suspect. It wasn't long before authorities made their first arrest. University of Florida student Edward Lee Humphrey was taken into custody on August 30th on completely unrelated charges of assaulting his 79-year-old grandmother. Humphrey had stopped taking his medications for bipolar disorder and started carrying a knife with him on supposed secret missions. On the same days as the murders, Humphrey was reportedly acting bizarrely, making serious threats and brandishing knives he'd hidden under his clothes. Another college student even told police they talked about what it would be like to dissect humans, and the killings stopped while he was in custody. However, Humphrey's DNA didn't match what was found at the scene of the crimes, and Humphrey was released, free to reclaim his life. Another suspect surfaces. In May of 1990, a man named Danny Rolling shot his father twice before fleeing the state of Louisiana. He was later implicated in a grocery store robbery in Florida, and when police located his forest campsite, they were alarmed at what they discovered. Among his possessions were bloody clothing items, weapons, dye-stained cash, and a tape where he recorded his dark thoughts.
I know I'll have to run the rest of my life, but I'm getting pretty good at it, if that means anything.
On the tapes, he was recorded detailing the most effective way to kill deer, and also claimed to possess other personalities named Enad and Gemini, a claim which he'd later present to authorities.
One personality is a gentleman named Enad, who is a Jesse James type.
Perhaps most eerily, the tape also included him singing songs with lines like "Little girls are not all sugar and spice" and "You're a killer, a drifter gone insane." He was tried for robbery in 1991, but wouldn't face trial for the murders until 1994. The confessions. A month before Rolling was due to go on trial, he buddied up with another inmate named Bobby Lewis. Rolling spilled all the details of the Gainesville murders to Lewis, and when it came time to talk to investigators, he would only do so through his new friend. Through Lewis, Rolling not only confessed to the murders, but he also claimed he hadn't finished his mission before being apprehended. He had wanted to kill a total of 8 people, rather than 5. He then pled guilty to the murders in court.
I've been running from first one thing and then another all my life. There are some things that you just can't run from, and this being one of those.
A few years later, however, Rowland said that he had reached his desired kill count and confessed to yet another set of killings, a triple murder that had taken place in Louisiana in 1989. Rowland said he'd been the one who killed 55-year-old Tom Grissom, his 24-year-old daughter Julie, and her 8-year-old nephew Sean in their home while they were in the middle of making dinner. The mindset. One of the most frightening things about Scream was how cavalier the killers were about claiming people's lives.
See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
That, too, was drawn from these real-life slangs. In 1998, a reporter from the Hillsdale Daily News spoke to Rolling while he sat on death row. And while he refused to comment directly on his own actions, he did share some of his opinions on the role serial killers play in society. He said that society was filled with hypocrisy, giving medals to soldiers who killed, while condemning the serial killer who took matters into his own hands. He went on to suggest that society should start a hunting season, where serial killers were allowed to thin the herd as a means of satisfying their natural instincts to harm other humans. The execution. Rolling was executed on October 25, 2006, and sang a hymn that he had composed himself as he was administered the lethal injection. He never asked for forgiveness or expressed any remorse for what he had done.
Don't let the evil in, and the evil just took over.
And while the shock of the murders he committed has since subsided since his execution, the community of Gainesville hasn't forgotten what happened. A mural is still painted on a wall on Southwest 34th Street to commemorate the names of the victims. In 2015, the city held a memorial service for the slain students on the 25th anniversary of their deaths. The surviving families of the students sat with the law enforcement officers who put an end to Rolling's murder spree. And because of the enduring presence of Scream, people won't soon forget the true tragedy that inspired it.